Hello everyone, and welcome to my B&B Daily Spoiler channel. Will uncovers a horrible secret in Dylan's room. That isn't Dylan, Luna, the bold and the beautiful spoilers. That's not Dylan, it's Luna. The hallway outside Dylan Shaw's room was unusually silent, making Will Spencer apprehensive. The lights were dimmed, creating lengthy shadows across the Forster guest wing. This wasn't intended to feel like a crime scene, but Will's instincts told him something was wrong. Dylan had not shown up for work. No calls, no texts, no excuses. That alone was enough to scare Will, but what actually disturbed him was the note he'd gotten late the night before. "Don't come looking for me." It did not sound like Dylan. Dylan Will was not the Dylan Will I knew. He was disciplined, direct, and couldn't leave loose ends. And Dylan abandoned Forster Creations without a word? Impossible. So Will had arrived here, against his best judgment. Despite every alarm bell in his head, he approached the door and hesitated. The hush behind it felt contrived. Too nice. Too intentional. Will knocked. Nothing. He tested the handle. Unlocked. That was the first scary sign. Inside Dylan's room. The room was clean. Almost unnaturally so. Dylan was disorganized when he was stressed. Papers piled carelessly, jackets strewn over chairs, and unfinished coffee cups everywhere. However, this space appeared to have been carefully curated, sanitized, as if someone had tidied up a life they didn't completely comprehend. Will walked inside cautiously and closed the door behind him. "Dylan," he called. No response. His glance went throughout the room, including the nicely made bed. The nightstand was blank, but for a single glass of water. The closet door is slightly ajar. And suddenly, he noticed movement. Someone was seated at the edge of the bed. A figure. Will's heart leaped at first look. "Dylan," he murmured with relief in his voice. "Where the hell have you been?" The figure turned. Will's blood ran cold. The person was dressed like Dylan. Dylan's jacket. Dylan's footwear. But the face. That face was incorrect. The jawline was softer. The eyes widened. The stance was too stiff, like someone pretending to be at ease in a body that did not belong to them. "Will step back. That's not funny," he remarked harshly. "Who are you?" The individual stood. Then, carefully, each reached up and removed a cap, revealing long dark hair that fell down about their shoulders. Will gazed, frozen. "Luna," he whispered. The horrifying truth. Luna Nozoa stood in front of him, pale and shaking, wearing Dylan's garments as armor. "What are you doing here?" Will demanded. "Why do you dress like him? Where's Dylan?" Luna swallowed hard, her eyes darting to the door as if she expected it to open at any moment. "You shouldn't be here," she stated gently. "If anyone sees you." "Luna," Will snapped. "Where is Dylan?" She looked at him, truly looked, and Will saw it. Fear. Real terror. The kind that hollows out a person from within. "They took him," she explained. The word struck like a gunshot. "Did you take him?" Will repeated. "Who?" Luna shakes her head. "I'm not sure who, but I understand why." She paced the room and wrung her hands. Dylan discovered something. Something enormous. Forster's old financial papers, secret accounts, and payoffs were buried years ago. Will's jaw clenched. And someone wanted him silenced. Yes. Luna's voice broke. They couldn't risk him going public. Will felt wrath rise in his chest. "So why are you here?" Luna paused, then murmured because they needed everyone to think Dylan was still around. The switch. Luna explained everything in halting bits. Dylan called her in a panic the night before he went. He was aware he was being followed. His cell phone was compromised. Someone had been in his apartment. He said if something happened to him, Luna whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I had to come here. Wear his clothing. Be seen via the windows. Answer the door if someone knocks." Will felt nauseated. "He used you as a decoy," Will explained gently. "No," Luna replied. "He trusted me." She lowered her sleeve to expose heavy bruises on her wrist. "They came for me instead," she explained. "They believed I would know where the evidence was. They threatened Dylan through me." Will's fist clenched so firmly that his claws dug into his hands. "Why didn't you contact the police?" Luna laughed angrily. "Because one of them is the police." That was the end of it for him. A secret too dangerous. Luna approached Dylan's desk and opened a concealed drawer. The contents included a flash drive and a sealed envelope. This is why they took him, she explained. Dylan documented everything. Names, dates, proof. Will looked at the drive as if it were a ticking bomb. Who was involved? He asked. Luna hesitated before saying the name that altered everything. Caroline Forrester. Will's heart fell. Caroline helped bury the original transactions, Luna continued. She believed they would never return. But Dylan discovered them. We'll pace the room. If Caroline's exposed, half the company goes down with her, Luna said. That is why Dylan disappeared. That is why I'm pretending to be him. A booming noise resonated along the hallway. Footsteps. Luna's eyes widened with dread. They're coming, she said quietly. The near escape. Will grasped Luna's hand. We are leaving. Now. They crept out of the service stairs as voices rang outside Dylan's door. Will's heart beat as they dashed down the steps, the truth following them every step of the way. Will got Luna in his car once they were outside. You're safe now, he whispered, although he knew that was not true. Not yet, because Dylan remained absent, and whoever abducted him would not relent. Bold and the beautiful spoilers. Elektra Forrester's jealousy problem began with her own decision. Elektra Forrester had always been polarized, with sunshine on one side and shadows on the other. As the youngest member of the Forrester family, she had learned early on how to direct attention in a room, which voices raised and which were softened and folded away. Yes, she enjoyed the brightness, but she also learned to detect where it did not reach. Her decision seemed insignificant at first. It was the kind of decision that appears innocent on bright days when everyone is smiling and the cameras are turned off. Elektra would walk into the family atelier and take on an autonomous capsule of designs for an upcoming show. Only a modest collection. A chance to be recognized as Elektra, maker, an artist, rather than as a Forrester niece or a girl bearing the family name. She persuaded herself she wanted to prove her abilities. She persuaded herself she was prepared. At first, no one in that house believed it would matter. People smiled and offered cursory encouragement. Have at it, Ridge responded, nodding diplomatically and warmly. Stephanie, always more clear-eyed than she appeared, poured Elektra a cup of tea and said, "Make it yours." The atelier hummed with the usual provisos and poetry. Even the designers, who had learned to measure the Forrester heirs' movements, applauded politely. Elektra's decision was characterized as pure ambition. But ambition is a velvet glove that fits over whatever hand is inside it, and hers carried something other than determination. It held longing, a little, keen hunger for attention that had been suppressed for far too long. For years, the family's focus had shifted to other athletes, talented, serious, legacy bearers. Elektra felt like a footnote in a story she wanted to change. The first shoot day ended in a little blaze of success. Elektra's designs were breezy and bright, with Forrester classic lines softened by a rebellious edge. The models flowed through the studio in chapters. Cameras clicked. Social media accounts were lighted up. Elektra, watching from the wings, felt her heart stutter into a steady beat, confirmation that her decisions had consequences. Her name became popular in the limited groups of fashion Instagram and gossip blogs. She breathed like a woman who had tasted what she desired and realized she couldn't live without it. However, soap opera life is allergic to the purity of motive. The attention that Elektra received also served as a mirror, reflecting back her deepest fears. As likes and comments grew, so did comparisons. People began to comment on the flashes of praise that fell on others, on Phoebe's natural talent, on Zen's new line's edge that everyone was talking about, and on the awkward way the industry sometimes coughed up one small story to someone else while pretending the rest of the world was not watching. Every compliment to another seemed like a devaluation of Elektra's own worth. Jealousy is a strange beast. It eats silently at the margins before announcing itself in a single, clumsy movement. For Elektra, the movement began with a party in the Forrester Garden, a launch celebration designed to cover both triumph and networking. Glasses chimed, laughter erupted, and Elektra moved across the room like a lady who controlled the air but not the focus. She saw Zen laughing under a lantern and felt it, small volcanic envy that made her throat tighten. She made a choice on the edge of the pool, where lights reflected like counterfeit stars. She would no longer allow herself to be invisible. If the world adored her art, she reasoned, she'd make it impossible for people to turn away, not just through fabric, but via scandal. It was a logic that some call clever, while others label disastrous. Confuse what they see, make everyone look, twist their focus until your name is in everyone's lips. At first, the gambit appeared ingenious and quite innocuous. Elektra overtly experimented with performance rather than feeling. She arranged a flirtatious social media exchange with a well-known model. She purposefully shared late-night studio selfies with a drink of red wine and an expression that read, "Look, I'm enigmatic." It worked at first. Her following count increased. She basked in what felt like vindication at the time. However, drama follows the law of diminishing returns. Each act must outperform the previous one, and each escalation necessitates a threat that undermines it. Elektra's modest stunts resulted in arms she had not expected. The model with whom she had flirted appeared to be superficially tied to a glossy magazine editor who enjoyed stories about troubled young Forster heirs. A thoughtless comment on the Right podcast sparked a myth that Elektra had staged her debut for attention, that she had tampered with the timeline to steal someone else's glory. Gentle jabs become pointed fingers. Her family, who were typically protective yet critical in private, began asking concerns. The first confrontation was quiet and devastating. Ridge discovered her in the atelier late one night, bent over a seam with the light focused just on the work and not on the drama she had created. He was exhausted and exacting. "Elektra," he said, "you promised to be true to the craft." Elektra's response came from a place she hadn't realized she'd been hiding. "I promised to be seen. How can being perceived at the expense of others help?" Ridge pushed. His voice held years of experience, witnessing the family flame guide itself toward preservation. Elektra flinched. For the first time, the shine of her decisions appeared thin, like lacquer on a bruise. Her jealousy, now individualized and vivid, had tangible implications. Zend, who had previously been close with her, backed away after hearing a thoughtless gossip. The model who had given her a temporary advantage became a source of gossip, admitting in a drunken podcast to fabricating the drama to boost her profile. Photographers staked out the entrances. The Forster public relations team rushed in ways that made Elektra feel guilty and triumphant. She had their attention, but it was the wrong kind. Instead of being complimented for her initiative, she was evaluated on her motivation. The worst event, the one that made her question everything, occurred when Elektra overheard a conversation in the back corridor that should have been private. Two journalists, early and hungry, were exchanging notes over coffee. "She's desperate," one person said into a microphone that thought it was turned off. "Her name is being utilized, and she is alone. It's sad." They laughed like hyenas in a circle. Elektra, who had intended to be the architect of her own ascension, suddenly felt like someone's punchline. She may have walked away then. She may have chosen to take a step back, treat her work like a fragile object, and rebuild from a place of humility. Instead, wounded, she doubled down. She published an op-ed for a fashion website that was subtle but forceful about authenticity and the pressure on legacy brands. She manufactured a tense interaction with Phoebe during an interview that went viral on talk shows. She pushed every button to keep her name in the headlines, even if they were harshly critical. Elektra's relationships became more defined as she progressed through the spiral. Her closest friend, the one who had smiled with her when her initial sketches came to life, grew aloof, uneasy about the arms race. Henry, who had admired Elektra's bravery, softly reminded her one night, "This isn't who you are when you're at your best." "You don't understand," she snapped. "This is the life that I want. If I don't accept it, someone else will." "No," he responded, his eyes filled with the pain that comes from watching someone select a road that you know would make them smaller. "You won't like what it costs." Electra did not listen. She continued to score minor victories, which felt like salt in the wound. There were evenings when her champagne glasses were full, and mornings when she awoke with the taste of regret. Jealousy had settled into a kind of routine, strategic maneuvers offset by terror, plaudits tempered by silent, cutting assessments. It took a particularly unpleasant occasion, a botched curtain call, to force her hand. Someone at a high-profile banquet had exposed the true timeline of Electra's introduction. It turns out she had missed out on a cooperation promise to a junior designer who had been waiting years for a chance. The junior's public breakdown, raw and dignified, made the rounds. Electra viewed the footage on a phone in the green room and felt a hollowness she couldn't describe. The applause seemed hollow. Later, alone on a balcony with the city bells murmuring like gossip, Electra finally allowed the stillness to speak. She relived her decisions like a movie. The first day in the atelier, her swagger at the party, the flirting posts, the op-ed, and the planned scandals. Each scenario revealed a version of herself she barely recognized, a woman whose decisions had been shaped by insecurity. It was then that she recognized something she had never completely admitted. Her envy began with a need to prove herself by becoming louder rather than better. She chose surface above substance because she believed it was the quickest way to be seen. Regret is not a complete absolution, but it is an honest start. Electra realized she couldn't restore the damage with a single speech. She also realized that continuing on this path would only make her hollower. So she made another, more difficult decision. She would accept responsibility for the catastrophe she had created. She would publicly apologize to the young designer whom she had once outmaneuvered. She would delete the op-ed and instead write about mentorship, admitting how anxiety had driven her to compete rather than collaborate. She would, if asked, return the manufactured images and drop the pretense. The first apology was awkward but genuine, and it was received well. The junior designer, bruised but dignified, took it with the tired elegance of someone caught off guard by a world that frequently ate the small ones first. The media, who had previously pounced, enjoyed the drama of the apology, but Electra determined it was not hers to control. She could do something different tomorrow. She started tiny. She spent the mornings at the bench, assisting interns with pattern making without fanfare. She asked the designer she had harmed to co-curate a piece for a charity exhibition. She asked Phoebe for coffee and listened. She took classes in subjects she had previously rejected as mere polish. Most significantly, she learned to view awards as a result rather than the objective. Jealousy did not disappear like a bad habit immediately. It stayed, a shadow she had come to identify and question whenever it appeared. It still tugged at her when she saw others being complimented. But instead of reacting with a plan for theatrical vengeance, she asked herself, what in me remains unfinished? What am I afraid of losing if they receive praise? Electra's decision to be visible had not been inherently bad. The issue had been how she pursued it, as if attention were a currency to hoard rather than a platform for sharing. When she made the cleaner choice, the world responded differently. People admired her more not because she was loud, but because she was brave enough to confess mistakes and charitable enough to adapt. Finally, Electra's jealousy served as both a wound and a teaching tool. It showed her the fragile cost of seeking approval in the eyes of others, as well as the richer, quieter joy of creating art that drew praise on its own. She eventually became a designer of nuance, craft, and integrity. And when the cameras returned to her, as they eventually did, she greeted them with something more stable than hunger. A person who had made a choice, learnt from it, and dared to be better.
Hello everyone, thanks for watching my video. The story takes a dark turn in a chilling, bold and the beautiful final moment. Please subscribe.